Yeah, go on, go on. We'll take Darius. Darius, you are live with Richard Gilliver and Katy Montgomery. You want to talk about Noah's flood.
Yeah, how you guys doing? So you're Richard, eh? How you doing, man?
I am Richard. Darius is someone who's visited. We've just been advertised in the Facebook fan groups. Darius is someone who was just visited the ACA fan run Atheist versus Theist debate groups, and
Oh,
he's been encouraged to call in, and he's calling in. I'm very 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 excited to talk to him about this. So, do you want to lay down, Darius, kind of what your basic premise is?
Well, as you know, as we've went back and forth in the group. The bottom line is what I'm here to show is this: the flood story. We all know it. We know it backwards and forward. Most of us do. Here's the thing that I'm here to say about it. Off top, we need to establish that the men that wrote the story, whether it be Noah or another writer, whoever wrote that story, according to the Bible, they thought they lived on a flat plane of earth. Ain't that the way? Can we all agree on that first? They thought it was a flat earth and it was
I
surrounded by
don't know
water.
about that. I'm not
That's
convinced.
what
Where does it say that in the Bible?
it says that the earth was flat. That's why we got flat earthers today that still believe that. It's ridiculous, but at the time
Because
they
humans,
they're
like there were some humans at least that worked out the world was round before Jesus's times.
I'm only
Oh, actually, this is pre, isn't
I'm
it?
sorry.
This is pre that.
I'm only discussing Noah and the story writers of that
Yeah,
story.
right. Okay,
And what I'm saying is,
potentially.
according to them, that was the whole world. You see what I'm
But
saying?
they had direct
So when they
communication with
wrote
God,
this,
so God should have told him, really.
right? Of course, I believe that being a God believer, but I'm not even pushing that. I'm just pushing for facts at this moment of the story. Could the story
Okay.
happen? Could an entire earth be destroyed without killing everything in the entire world? Could it happen?
No.
Yes. According to that story, they thought they lived on a flat plane of earth surrounded by water.
Well, but before we get into that, I think it's important, and I think you agree with this as well, Darius. And so, I think it's very, very important to just put out there that the Earth is not flat. We can both agree on that. We live on a spherical globe. We all agree on that. The Earth is categorically not flat. So, let's just get that out of the way first. And you're talking about the beliefs of people in the past. That's correct, isn't
But they
it,
spoke
Darius?
to God, didn't they? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Richard.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Basically, validating the story. Could it have happened the way they saw it and the way they wrote about it? That's the thing. It's a big misunderstanding of Christians and anyone else, scholars. You know me, I don't really respect any scholar that did not see this clearly, that they were writing in what they knew, and they wasn't aware of the rest of the world. So these scholars missed this.
Oh, you go ahead, Richard.
Can I just ask you what kind of are you suggesting that the people who wrote this story were they thought that the entire world that they were aware of was flooded, but it wasn't the entire world as we know it today? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right. So I just wanted to clarify that because I'm very interested in this because as we've briefly touched on talking in the Facebook group, at the time the people who wrote this story they had knowledge of Europe, most of Europe, certainly all of the Middle East, a good portion of North Africa, and possibly even India. It was only 100 years or so after that we get the earliest kind of reports of India. So it's very possible that they even had a knowledge of the extent of the earth right up until India, or if not the borders of India. So I'm just kind of curious as to what kind of evidence you think there is that there was a flood on that scale, even if not global, but simply on the scale that these people would have understood of as the whole world.
Well, again, as we know, for one, no one knows exactly when the Noah story supposedly happened. I'm gonna say supposedly, just to be fair here. No one really knows how long ago that was. We got an idea. Now, there's several ways that this could happen. I mean, when you look at it from another perspective of, okay, we're not looking at the world now. We're looking at how big was this planet Earth? Is that what I think is what you're asking or projecting here to what you think or what we think? How big of Earth are we talking about? That Noah that was flooded?
Yeah.
Now,
Because it sounds like this might not solve any problems and might create more problems.
Well, maybe so, but I'm just saying now. Well, now we don't know if that, Richard. I appreciate you saying it, but we don't know if that is exactly so. Now we all know that there are not I don't say cities because I don't want to get into that, but there is land that once was not covered by sea that is now covered by sea.
Yeah,
is that true? Can we agree on that?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
I don't know. All right. I'm just making a point. Now, I don't know where the flood took place. Nobody really does. They're a liar if they say, I know exactly where it happened. They're lying to you. The bottom line is, all I'm here to do is knock down this solid wall of impossible to say, no, this possibly could have happened this way. And I'm not even bending words. I'm literally reading it as it was written in the Bible.
Well, talking of how it was written in the Bible, because I guess that's where we get the knowledge from. That's where you get the knowledge from. That's where I get the knowledge from that this may or may not have happened. In the Bible, God does say that he's going to destroy all the creatures on heaven, below the heavens. And a direct quote from God here. He's saying, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So you've got to make this boat, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, what was this other thing I was just looking at? And I will wipe from the face of the earth every living creature I have made. So he's not going to achieve that just by flooding the Middle East. I mean, there's thousands of freshwater fish in North America, for example, and in order to wipe them out, he'd have to flood America. So this is the part I'm reading here is Genesis 6 to 9. If you're interested, but I feel like the only information we have about the flood does kind of claim that it's the whole earth. So I'm not really sure if your argument, and if you're saying the Bible's wrong, then I can just say, well, I agree.
Well, that's a good one. No, now, absolutely. What I'm saying is, that's funny. No, for one, I use the King James Bible. That's a whole 2-hour discussion to why.
Okay, I'm a new international. I'll switch to King James.
Okay, King James. Now, what I'm going to tell you is it says earth. You can go through all King James. All these writers, all they knew about was earth and the heavens. Now, this ain't even bending words either. We all know that these primitive men refer to the sky as the heavens. Okay, so if I went outside right now, stepped outside and looked up, that would be my heavens. And that was their heavens. Still, again, they're on a plane of earth that was surrounded by water. To them, this was everything.
In New King James, though, it does say, I am bringing floodwaters on the earth to destroy from under heaven all flesh, which is the breath of life. Everything that is on the earth shall die. So everything. Right? So God, that's a God quote.
Now, right. Now, watch this. Here's where the scholars, I believe, well, I know they got it wrong. I'm going to say I know. Now that we're not in the group, I can so-called preach. That's what you call it. That's for I get to preach. I know for a fact that these writers were talking about the earth that they were on. When they spoke with God, God did, and also in this, but I'm going to put this out here, God didn't even want these men to become smart. I hate to say it, but he actually didn't want that to happen. He went against it. But to get back to the flood story, it said earth, 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 earth. And everybody asked me for a miracle. I'm going to provide you one today. Huh?
It does say
No
all.
one,
So the point where I'm going with this is if like, and I guess another thing is just imagine God's like, I know when I say earth, so I'm God and I'm going to talk to Richard, who's like the king of the humans at the moment. I'm like, I know what this guy thinks. He thinks the world is flat. He thinks the world only extends to the horizon. He thinks there are only like 10,000 people on Earth because that's as far as he's been. Okay, so I'm just going to say Earth. And I think everyone in this little range is awful and I'm going to destroy all of them. I'm going to destroy all the men, all the women, all the children, all the non-binary people, all of the like fish and dogs and everything, but only in the Middle East. Like what is my reason as a god to destroy all of the freshwater fish that live in the Middle East, but none of the animals in the rest of the world? Like I get that your reason for presenting this smaller scale flood is it's arguably more credible than a global flood, but I just feel like it's only more credible in the fact that you need less water, not in the fact that it makes more sense or that it says it in the Bible or like what's the point?
Well,
Where did it end? Did someone just had like flood up to their ankles? Like there must have been a point the last person to die at the edge of the flood. Were they not that wicked? What happens if you lived at the end of the street that went underwater and the other end of the street didn't? Like, were you? I don't know. Like, there must have been an edge to this destruction, and God was like, you're all right. People living on North Street, you're gonna live through this. People living on South Street, you are fucked.
Are you mocking me? Wicked. Are you mocking me right now, Richard? Look, man. The bottom line is this: it said earth, 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 ground, whole earth. Earth, ground, whole earth, earth. It never said the whole world. And what I'm trying here's one
everything on earth.
But the word for earth is, which we've discussed before, but just for the benefit of the listeners, the word for earth is eretz, which can specifically mean the whole world. And in context, as Katy said, in context of the actual story, it does seem to refer, if we're going on what God actually said, to the entire world. There's no indication that it only meant this localized area. It seems to me that you're only getting this interpretation just as because you kind of you think that these people only believed in this certain little area extending and being their whole world. I think that's quite insulting to the people who lived at that time.
Well, they can come and talk to me about it. The bottom line is this: look, God didn't write the Bible, man. He inspired it. A man wrote that Bible. A lot of Christians don't want to hear that. But it's true. I'm sorry. God didn't write the Bible. Man wrote the Bible inspired by God's word. And the bottom line is the man that wrote this Bible did the best they could to explain what they were seeing and experiencing. Of course, he's going to say God said. Yeah, God said he was going to flood the whole earth. And whatever wording they were using, it still wouldn't matter. At that time, they thought the entire world was a flat plane of earth, regardless of how big, with mountains, high hills, you can name anything, all the animals. And by the way, the fish, it said only air-breathing animals. So fish wasn't included flesh. In this. I'm sorry?
Flesh, birds, cattle, and beasts. Yeah, well, it would have killed the freshwater fish, wouldn't it?
No, it said air-breathing animals only.
Do you think there's evidence for this flood, Darius, in this localized area?
I do, actually. I really do. Obviously, I can't just fly out there and hire a ship to go down and dig to see it. But I got my own personal beliefs of where I think this took place, yes.
You think there's evidence out there and you just haven't seen it? You don't think you have evidence. You think that there is evidence. We haven't got it yet.
Yes. And then I think there is some dishonesty, and that's another story. But with what evidence is found, there are cities that are buried under the sea. Do you agree with that, or?
There are, but there is buried under the sea on the entire planet. So it's kind of, it's hard just to pluck one particular flood story out and say that's responsible for all of the flooded cities.
No, I'm only defending the story that's in the Bible. That one particular story says that entire
Very
earth was
strategic.
destroyed. The whole space. Huh? Hello?
Which specific area do you think was flooded? Do you think the Bible story is referring to?
I ain't gonna sit here and lie and say I know which city or place. I just know that one of these cities that's buried under sea, I really believe that's one of the locations where this possibly took place. I believe it actually is one of these.
We might be able to do some maths on this because it mentions mountains. So we've got to find somewhere that has at least one mountain or two mountains, because then it's mountain plural.
Buried.
And it had enough water to
Underwater.
go over the top of this the mountains. So then we might end up with miles high of water. And then even if we had just let it like flatten off in the way that water does, like how high is that going to need to go? And is there any land left?
Oh wow! There's mountains. There are huge mountains buried underwater right now, under the sea.
Yeah,
I mean,
right now.
You got to be aware of this. They're huge mountains.
I am, but if we got some of the mountains above the land right now and we put them underwater, the water level would have to be a lot higher, like hundreds of meters higher. And if the water level in the Middle East was say 300 meters higher, I mean, you can't just have water stacked up in a pile, because that isn't how it works, is it? It likes to flatten out. So then the water level would have to raise in most places, right? Well, like, is it even physically possible to have a 300-meter water level in one place and not in another?
Well, Court, if we can, I can take you to I could take you to a place in the sea right now that is covered. There's mountains covered. There's land plains that's covered right now.
Yeah.
So,
but the water is relatively flat. And like you couldn't just raise up the water level somewhere 300 meters higher and that not have an effect elsewhere, right? Like you're thinking about just the physics of it.
We're talking past tense. It already had effect hundreds of thousands of years ago. It already done it. You know, it already raised up and.
Are you suggesting rather than adding more water to what we have today and that went away somewhere, you're saying that there used to be less water and there were cities on land that now still are underwater?
Yes, and also it wasn't just one thing that caused that. Even in the Bible, it speaks of the land plains that broke and water was coming up even from the ground. It says it in the story. In Genesis, when it talks about the flood story, the water was coming from the ground as well. So it was coming from above and out of the ground.
That kind of, that answers some of the questions, because if we can go and find some city underwater, we could say, wow, maybe 6,000 whatever years ago, this was actually on land and God's brought in all this water and it's still flooded and the people who were killed in that are still dead. But the issue is, I feel like when they're talking about the earth, like these people were aware of cities we know still exist, like Jerusalem, for example. So, I mean, what happened to them?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm in the flood story, and at this particular time, these people did not know about a lot.
They knew about Jerusalem.
Matter of fact, they. Hello.
Hello. Darius, I think what would be beneficial is, I've really enjoyed. I'm really glad you've called. It really makes me excited when people call from the groups, from the Facebook fan groups. I think what would be probably beneficial to continue this conversation in a productive way is if you kind of go away and have a look at where the people lived who wrote this story, and then kind of, because you said you believe that there's evidence, but you're not quite sure where that evidence is. have a look where they wrote the story and have a look if there's evidence for a flood in that area, which covered that area. And once you've done that, I think give us a call back and kind of go into the details more specifically about where you think this flood occurred. Because at the minute, we're kind of talking about a general idea, which is very interesting, but there's not really any meat and potatoes there to kind of get into and discuss in any kind of depth. So, if you can go away and kind of find out where the people lived who wrote the story and find out if there's any flood evidence from that particular area, and then give us a call back. I really, really do appreciate you calling, Darius. I'm going to give you a quick minute just to kind of give us your final word before we let you go.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to say, Rich, I find you to be quite pleasant in person on the phone. It seems the wording in the group is bad. And I must say I suffer from dyslexia. So just why I got you in person. Now you know if my wording is ever weird, I do suffer from that. So that is it causes me problems. And I'm going to say with this is, as a regular, you got the Christian faith and all these faiths, all these man-made religions and all this stuff, none of that is relevant to anything. If we did away with the religion, the man-made religion, atheists and God believers wouldn't have to fight like we do. I have no problem with you guys.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I don't think we're fighting, Darius, but I do appreciate your call. I am going to have to let you go. Thank you very, very much for calling.
See you, Darius.
That was an interesting one. I've spoke to Darius for probably a few weeks now in the Facebook groups, and it's always interesting when you get someone like that. And he's not the hardest person to understand that we get in the Facebook groups by any stretch of the imagination. I'm really, really glad he's calling, and I really encourage other people who are members of the groups to call in, because that's what we want. We want that interaction with them.